Hey guys, this is RK, and this is sort of part of the Lrn2Tank series. It's a bit of an offshoot of sorts. I was actually requested by Superman Director. He requested that I make a video talking about the new threat changes. What threat changes? You didn't get the memo? Oh my goodness. So, last week on the 16th, so it's been what, exactly a week ago? So last Tuesday there was a hotfix that went out, including a dev water cooler post. Basically, our only communications lately from Ghostcrawler have been through them about a new set of threat changes. So the first threat change was applied in last week's hotfix, sorry, that increased threat generation basically by 66% over what we were already used to. The normal threat multiplier was 300% threat for every point of damage done. So 1 point of damage is 300 threat. 1,000 damage would be, 30,000 threat, etc. So now it's a 500% multiplier. So 1 point of damage is now 500 threat, and so forth and so on. So 300 or 500 divided by 300 is 1.66666 blah blah blah, repeating decimal. Or basically, we just got a 66% buff on our threat generation. Great stuff, right? Additionally, there's another change coming down the line, apparently, in a patch that is going to change the way Vengeance works. Vengeance basically will ramp up more quickly. As it currently is now, I don't honestly have the exact curve memorized. But as it works right this moment, basically you generate a smaller amount of threat at the beginning of the fight, and the more threat, or, the more vengeance you already have, the more you gain. So as the fight goes on, it allows you to keep your threat lead once, the tricks of the trades drop, and once your misdirects all drop, because those are temporary. They only last, 30 seconds? So the whole point is that, as the fight goes on, you can still stay up there. You're not having to worry about, your DPS catching up to you. So, uh, it's an amazing set of changes. And in order to see exactly what was going on with them, I enlisted the help of some friends. So, as you can see here in the background, this is a Zul'Gurub run that we did last night. Folkvar, of course, is my husband. Sasami is a friend of ours. We also call him Ayeka from the Nessingwary server, who was guilded with us before we took off to Thunderhorn. And Genera is probably the most overpowered Death Knight I know. In fact, I don't have any meters running because my LVUI plugin with SCADA broke in the last update. So I've just disabled it since it's not working. But from what I've been told by my husband, that first pull with the guy in front of the green cauldron, Jen pulled 30k. And that was, if you were paying attention, he was complaining about no killing machine procs. He still pulled 30k DPS without killing machine procs. So we actually ended up running a Zul'Gurub with him the week prior. And all I did the entire time was cuss him out about how he kept ripping threat off of me, how I couldn't get anything done. I threatened to just go cap for him, giving him a general amount of shit. I tanked for him before. He is in Last Hope and was really one of our best DPS in there before I took off. And so this right here is one of the only times he pulled off of me the entire time. And that's because I was more worried about getting positioned and over to the cauldron. So I wasn't building up, as much damage as I normally would. But the fact that it was almost dead before he actually pulled that threat is the impressive portion of this. He also pulled threat one other time for just a moment, during this run. And then, of course, the AoE snake group um, really wasn't that big of a problem. He and Folkvar had some of the snakes initially, but just my normal thrash, my normal AoE spam, I managed to pull them right back off. The threat change is phenomenal. And, talking with Jen throughout this, he was like, wow, this is awesome. I can face roll harder. Because he was already, he knew that he had to walk on eggshells and was already trying to behave himself, in prior runs where he was still ripping threat. And now he can literally just, focus on doing what he needs to do, moving out of bad stuff, etc. He doesn't have to watch his threat meters quite so badly. So this is excellent for DPS that felt like they were, having to throttle themselves at the beginning because there were threat concerns. This is great for tanks. I don't know about most tanks, but I take it as a personal slight when I don't feel that I can keep threat. That's the job of the tank, is to keep the threat of the mob, make sure that the bad guy is beating on them. So the fact that I wasn't necessarily holding threat all of the time always really irritated me. In fact, part of my reason for quitting raiding had to do with the fact that I got tired of the DPS who couldn't count to 5 in order to wait, just a moment while I built threat. So this was an extremely welcome change. Um, the three biggest, threats, for lack of a better term, to tanks have historically been Death Knights, specifically Arms Warriors. Fury can do quite a bit of burst damage single target, but AoE with Arms and hell, I don't even remember what the name of the ability is, but where they start spinning around in fucking circles, yeah, that ability is terrible. And um and even Ret Paladins. Ret Paladins can use Blessing of Salvation on themselves. They can get, all of the classes can get Blessing of Salve from other people. Even using his own Blessing of Salve and the salve of one of our Holy Paladins, the resident Ret Paladin of Last Hope would frequently, be right there in threat, with the tanks. And we'd have to worry about it. He pulled quite a few times on Neph attempts, so it's really nice that now it's not a problem. There's not any reason to be concerned. You do still, of course, it's not just being given to you. You do still have to make sure that you're doing everything it is that you normally do. You just don't have to, feel badly when suddenly you can't keep threat any longer. So it is actually very excellent, a great change. How does this affect your stats? It really shouldn't. Any feral that was stacking expertise or hit to the cap, for one, hit to the cap is probably not that great. Expertise to the soft cap was not so much about threat as it was about uptime on bear bubbles, and that's not changing. It hasn't changed at all. So that's still, good. You still may be interested in hitting the soft expertise cap, because it does significantly increase the amount of times that you hit, thus the amount of times you can potentially crit, thus the uptime on your bear bubbles. For a while, I suggested that those that did nothing but run dungeons, possibly, look at hitting the soft expertise cap for threat reasons. And now you don't necessarily have to. When I asked Folkvar about, how the threat was looking, he had his meter running, and he was telling me that I was out-threating Jen by about 300%, about 3 times the amount that, he was putting out, which is a significant amount. So all in all, it is quite excellent. There's, I don't necessarily know that it's absolutely needed. I think that, forcing the DPS to hold for 5 seconds could have been good for them. If they can't pay attention to if they can't pay attention to their threat bar, then how can you expect them to pay attention to what they're standing in? That said, it really was holding back a number of very good players like Genera, like Roycat, like Folkvar even, who couldn't, handle or live with that sort of threat lack for all intents and purposes. So that that is that. I hope that you all enjoy the new threat changes. I hope they stick. I wish you all the best of luck in your tanking endeavors. And until next time, take care.